Hey everyone, welcome to IBC's Evil Safety News, a story of two men building a car, driving from Florida to California.
No, dude, that's not what
one
this
day-
podcast is about, AJ.
Well,
It's,
all right,
It's about the evil safety dudes parts, right? But we're about how not to die at work.
we are the Evil Safety Dudes, and we
Okay.
don't want you to die at work.
All right, and so welcome everybody to the inaugural podcast, and where we talk about all things safety and security. And so yeah, this show is mainly about how not to die at work. A lot of OSHA stuff. So let me introduce to you the co-host, Mr. AJ Hanscom. He is an authorized OSHA outreach instructor who's conducted thousands of on-site safety inspections and audits.
And go ahead and let me allow myself to introduce Mr. Aaron Iacino, the man, the myth, the legend, who taught me everything I know about safety.
That is very nice. You had a couple other instructors, but
Regardless.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll give you your $5 after this show.
Woo!
So, what are we talking about today, AJ?
We're going to be going over a bunch of stuff today. Let's go ahead. We're going to cover some different technology people have been using in safety, talk about some OSHA case studies, OSHA updates. We got a couple good things for our inaugural podcast today, Aaron.
Awesome. What's the main topic?
Main topic today was we're going to talk about some top OSHA violations. We're really going to dig into the big ones that people
I
have been
thought we were
hitting.
talking about OSHA audits.
OSHA audits was not the main topic. We can make it the main topic.
Well, see, on our sheet, those are the bullet points for the main topic. You just didn't write it in.
OSHA, why?
Yeah.
I actually wrote OSHA violations. That's what you said. You were like, we're going over OSHA violations.
OSHA audits.
I
That's
wrote
okay.
OSHA violations.
That's okay. We're fully prepared. It's all good.
Violations in
So,
audits. I got you now.
All right. Well, enough of that. So it's Monday.
It is Monday.
How was your weekend?
Weekend was good, man. I had a good weekend. Early note, man. I know it's too early. I don't care if people start fights. We put up our Christmas tree.
Yeah, that
It
a lot of
happened.
people are mad about doing that before Thanksgiving, but
Shoot.
to each his own.
That's
you
right,
know,
man.
whatever.
Live your life and be happy.
Do your thing. Do your thing. I had a decent weekend. We had a good open mat down at the gym, and it was didn't get beat up too bad. So
You had an open Matt.
yep.
Was he a nice guy, Matt? He was
No,
pretty
you
cool.
know that's where we just get together and spar.
I thought maybe it was
Yeah,
just a
it's
real
just-
cool gentleman who's open with his feelings.
He's very open to beating you up.
Matt was hanging out. He was like, "What's up? Tell me how you are."
All right, so OSHA, man, I probably this year alone, I have lost count in the Sioux City area how many OSHA cases I've worked. One of the ones that bring up more general is just all the COVID OSHA inspections.
A lot of COVID.
Yeah, employees complaining of bad COVID rules at their job. OSHA's like Johnny on the spot all over that one. So employers, make sure you're doing what you can to allow your employees to social distance and wear PPE and have hand sanitization, things like that, because if they get mad for any reason, they could call OSHA, and OSHA will follow up more so than regular. In my experience, when there's a COVID complaint, I've worked quite a few of those recently, and then had to prove on behalf of the employer that they were following all these CDC recommendations, and it's been quite tough. So that's kind of my OSHA case study for the day.
Yeah, the whole COVID-19 thing has been affecting everybody in a lot of different situations, and OSHA's actually put out some recent reading material on how to make sure that you are recording it properly.
I've been getting that question a lot. So the question I've been getting, AJ, is, all right, so I got an employee who has tested positive for COVID-19. Do I have to record that on my OSHA 300 log? What do you got on that?
That's a good question, and honestly, they actually answered it pretty well, I feel like. That was step one. They made it a 3-step process. First off, the patient has to actually be confirmed COVID.
Okay.
You can't just stay home because, I got a fever, I got all of the symptoms, and I got COVID. No, it's got to be confirmed COVID.
It can't be a case of Corona 24 pack. It has to be confirmed.
I got that Corona 24. Right.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
No suitcase
Okay.
24 diseases, right?
Okay.
You got to actually have it confirmed.
Okay.
The second one's where we get into a little bit of a hairy situation. It's got to be a work-related case. You and I both know that defining something as work-related can be a little tricky when it comes down to illness.
So I imagine that's the same as any workplace injury. The employer would have to conduct some kind of investigation to see if it was work-related.
Right, find out, was there a chance? And that's where you got to put it, in the scope and realm of a chance. Is there a chance they worked in close proximity for an extended period of time with another employee that had confirmed COVID?
So let me give you a scenario. See what you come
All
up
right, lay
with.
it on me.
So employee test positive for COVID-19, but there's 0 other confirmed cases on the job. They're like patient 0 for that work site. Would I have to record that?
I'm going to say in this exact case, in a scenario where we can control every variable in our own pretend world, I'm going to say no. They don't have to record that one because there's a good chance they didn't pick it up at work. We don't have another confirmed case where they were in close proximity for an extended period of time at work.
All right. Well, let me throw another one at you. So that person was there for a few days before they got tested and everything and told their employer. And so they were working in close proximity for an extended period of time with some other employees. And some of those employees contracted COVID-19. Would I then have to record those?
All right. Again, in our closed scenario where we control all the circumstances, that sounds like a recordable to me, Aaron. The way they are defining the whole recordable and work-related sounds like that employee reasonably could have picked it up at work.
Okay, curveball for you.
Uh-oh.
So let's say the scenario goes like this where I'm exempt. I'm a non-covered employer. I'm not required because of my NAICS code. I'm not even required to maintain OSHA 300 logs. So let's say I did an investigation and found that the employee could have reasonably contracted at work. Would I have to record it?
Well, the answer is going to go back to, do you have to fill out an OSHA log in the first place and record all of your injuries?
And in this scenario, it's a no.
In this scenario, it's a no. So no, if you're not recording any injuries, you're not going to record this one.
Okay, well, that all seems pretty cut and dry. Thank you for that OSHA update, Mr. AJ.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on to new safety gear. And what I wanted to bring up, this is kind of the part in the podcast where we talk about any new technology or actual physical PPE, personal protective equipment, or anything that's cool and new out there. One of the things I want to bring up, since the main topic is on OSHA audits and inspections, is the Safety Reports inspection app. You and I have been using that for what?
Oh, like a year now.
A year now?
About that.
And what are your thoughts so far?
So far, I'm really digging it for a lot of different reasons. Primary reason is it's easy use. You can pop it open, whether you're in general industry or construction, walk through your job site and go, oh, I'm looking at ladders. Hit ladders, go through it, find all the good, relevant ladder regs. And on occasion, there have been things that I have wanted to record, going through the app, been like, oh, shoot, that's not even here. But they're actually super open. Shoot them an email saying, hey, how can I get this in there? And boom, they can actually make a button for you, update it to everybody, and it just keeps growing and evolving. So far, I really like it. Easy use and thoroughness, both very valuable.
I've been enjoying it too. I think the main thing that I like about it is that it generates a very professional inspection audit report that I am not having to spend an hour or two to generate. I remember for years.
You don't miss sitting down with a hot cup of coffee in the afternoon.
I don't have
hours
much
worth of inspections.
I don't have much desk time, and when I used to have to import all of my photos into like my Word document and write out what the issue is in the photo and all the details about it, and have to do that for 100 photos, it could take hours. But this one lets me take a photo right into the app. It prints it out with the actual OSHA reg. So
yeah,
I think the time-saving thing is the big seller for me.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. And the thing I really like is sometimes on a job site and there's so many different little pieces, you're like, well, is that technically a violation? But right there in the app, man, it's just got a little icon you can click and boom, it'll pull up the actual reg to the exact spot that you're looking at, and you have an exact answer right there. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
I like it too because it's thorough. I have a lot of paper checklist audits that I've used over the years. Some I've developed myself, but I've actually learned from using the app, like, oh, wow, that's a violation. I didn't even know that was a violation, just reading all the checklist items.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty awesome.
It was invented by a safety dude, and so that's cool. And he must have been like me and not like to do paperwork. So way to go on creating this app. So gets a thumbs up for me. What about you, AJ?
Oh, for sure. I definitely approve of this one.
All right, so it's called Safety Reports. They are not a sponsor of this program, so just full
Safety Reports, if you're listening, we love your app.
Yeah. All right, so on to our main topic, safety audits. I don't care what you call them, safety audits, safety inspections. We call them mock OSHA audits. There's a lot of different names for them, but basically we're talking about the internal ones where the company conducts them themselves or the company hires a consultant to do it, not an OSHA inspection. So to be clear, we're not talking about OSHA inspection. That's a different animal, which we should definitely have a podcast on how to survive an OSHA inspection 100%. But this is like internal. That's why sometimes we call them same team And so, AJ, how many of these you think you do a week?
Half dozen to a dozen a week.
Yeah, and so let's start talking about top violations that we're seeing when we do audits. Go for it.
So depending on who I'm working with, I would honestly say overall top violation, no proof of training. Honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, top violation.
Which, like 2019, in the top 10 violations from OSHA, they started incorporating, I think it was fall protection training, as something that they're looking on and starting to cite on. So what are you not seeing people trained on that they're doing in the field?
It's a surprising amount of everything, Aaron.
Okay.
Just thinking back to some of the actual OSHA cases, and maybe I should be more specific about the stuff I'm finding, but in each OSHA case, I've been surprised. People have been like, oh, no, you've been using ladders? Oh, you haven't sat down your employees to sit through ladder training. And then these people have their minds blown. They're like, I need to sit through ladder training? You mean I need to know how to use this thing I walk up and down? I'm like, yeah, this is like the basics of it. You need ladder training.
Yeah, I agree. We worked that case together, and they did get busted because there was an injury on a ladder. And OSHA said, let me see proof that you train your employees on how to use the ladder, and there was none. And, you know, there's some of our clients that we got them up to speed. They let us do this stuff, and so they could furnish documentation that they train on ladders. But so many companies are overlooking these simple things like ladders, power tools, hand tools. I say, why didn't you train them on that drill? Why would I train this guy on a drill?
I know, it's just a power tool.
I hired him because he had experience. If I had to train him on it, I wouldn't have hired him. So it's those simple things. We call them career trainings, one and done. It's not anything that you have to do annually. Hit them up on orientation. Hit them up once, and you're probably good. We'd like to do them annually, though, anyway. All right. What about operator certifications? Do you see most of the people you audit compliant with that proof of training?
That one goes back and forth. A lot of the companies that I'm actually working with frequently, I have trained all their employees, and they're actually probably the people who I do audit the most. But I think I have a feeling that most of the people who are out there that need an audit have little to no OPSER training.
Yeah, so forklifts probably the main one. It's been part of OSHA's National Emphasis Program for a long time. So that's probably number one, I'd say, to employers. Make sure your folks are certified correctly in that, and make sure they get refreshers on it if it's been 3 years, because OSHA's going to check.
Right. Got to have that knowledge, training, and experience to train operators.
Yeah, and, boom lifts and scissor lifts, I agree it's hit and miss. There's probably 50-50 in my experience. 50% of the folks operating boom lifts, scissor lifts do not have any training, and the other half do. And then how much in your experience of your employees that you see wearing actual harnesses, personal fall arrest systems, do you think could provide documentation of training on that?
Well, that's an even tougher one, because I feel like when it comes down to PPE, all the time, whether it be fall protection or even just like a hard hat, there's little to no training. And so I think when you get in the realm of asking somebody to put on a harness just to go use a boom lift that they probably weren't trained for, well, they're probably not even going to be trained on that harness.
Yeah, for sure. I see a lot of employers just handing out harnesses and lanyards and not really putting their folks through a certification course. And now that you mentioned PPE, I've worked with companies who got cited by OSHA for as simple as dust masks, providing them for their employees, but not providing training.
Got to get that Appendix D in.
Yeah, so for all you employers listening, any personal protective equipment that you hand out, you should have documented training that you train them on. Just as simple as earbuds. AJ, I don't know if you do this in your PPE class, but when I do it, I just like to mess with everybody and say, who knows how to put in earbuds? And everybody raise their hand, and then I have the class describe how to do it.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, no one can describe how to do it correctly.
Yeah, I'll miss one step.
Yeah, they don't know to pull the ear up and back to align the eustachian tube so the earbud can be fully inserted in the ear to the required depth to actually get that about 10 decibels a drop. So that's an example of something employers aren't doing. I mean, how many employers are training their folks in how to put in earbuds or foamies, whatever you want to call those? All All right, cool. What about when you come across a trench? What are some of the violations you're seeing there?
What violations don't you see in a trench? Trenches for me are kind of like scaffolds. They're like these things that people want to get done in a half an hour, so they don't do any of the additional work. So there's no sloping, there's no shoring, there's no ways in and out of the trench once you hit 4 foot. Nobody's checking the air. It's just a whole bunch of fun stuff that I feel like should get taught, should be known. It just absolutely does not.
I don't want to talk too much about it on this episode, but just this weekend on the news in Sergeant Bluff, Iowa, there was a trench collapse.
Oof.
But they did save the guy.
Good.
Which, is always good because that's not always the case. But yeah, I'm with you. Nothing makes me more upset as a safety guy. Well, there probably is a few things. I have a lot of pet peeves, but
yeah,
some of the things, one of the top things that gets me upset as a safety guy is putting some people through some competent person trenching and excavation course. And then a week later, driving by and seeing them in a trench over 5 feet deep with zero benching, sloping, or shoring, zero employee protection.
All the time.
And I'm just like, that these things collapse. And it's like 10 cubic tons of pressure on your chest. Even if this collapses and your head's above, you could still die from not being able to move your diaphragm and breathe. And they know this and still just don't want to do it.
Well, yeah, because all that extra stuff, all that extra work that goes into it is going to add time onto the job. And I want to get done real quick.
Right. And, I get it. Trench boxes, all equipment costs money, and then you got to haul it to the site. You got to have people trained to put it together.
Right.
You got
set up.
Yeah, you got to have people trained to set up and inspect it, and I get it. But man, all of that is well worth it when you save a life.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not worth losing a human being, man.
So you're talking about scaffolding. I remember being a new safety guy. I was on a construction site. We were building an ethanol plant in Superior, Iowa, and the safety guy there didn't even allow scaffolding on his site.
Not at all. He
was like, no scaffolding on my site. And I'm like, what's your problem with scaffolding? I like scaffolding. And I was like, what's your problem with scaffolding? He's like, no one can build it right.
What are you, scaffolding's best friend?
His stance was no one can build it to code. So we're not even going to do it. Now, we needed to build scaffold for the contractor that I was a safety guy for. So we kind of fought with them a little bit. But we had to, and eventually when we had to get real big, we couldn't build it ourselves. We had to bring in a professional scaffold company to build it.
Okay.
And they were legit, and I learned a lot from that crew. But what are some of the top violations you're seeing on scaffolding when you're doing an audit?
Fall protection for me has got to be number one. It's got to be number one.
So no harness or no handrail or what?
Oh, it's either like the ends have no fall protection, so no top rail, no mid rail, no toe board. There's almost never a toe board all the way around, like anywhere. When I go see up a scaffold right now, it's probably one of the easiest things to spot. Maybe somebody will put up a mid rail or a top rail, but no toe boards.
And so toe boards, falling object protection, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you could do that or like some kind of 10-foot perimeter caution tape. But I'm not seeing either one.
No, nothing.
Yeah. And I agree. I don't see guardrails barely at all. And when I do, just like you, I don't see them on all open sides.
Right.
If they're not tied off, that fall protection, that handrail, guardrail system has to be on all open sides. And I just don't see it.
No, me neither.
I don't want to, cause too much trouble for the rental companies, but I wish that they would get more knowledge on scaffolding. They can make more money.
Oh, sure.
If I called them up and said, hey, man, I'm going to build 3 sections high. I need some molded frame scaffold. Give me everything I need. I wish that they would give them mud sills, screw jack base plates.
The whole package.
And a guardrail system. Now, if I'm that scaffold rental company, I say, okay, you want 3 sections high. Are all 3 sections working levels? And if they say, yeah. Then I could then give them 3 sections of guardrail systems and charge that for that. Now, to be fair, you probably wouldn't need it on the first one because that's only 5 foot high.
And it doesn't kick in until 10.
Doesn't kick until 10. However, these sites anymore, they're all 4 foot, 4 foot, 4 foot fall
I've been
protection.
seeing that a lot on construction sites.
So they wouldn't be out of line for doing that. They can make more money. People would be compliant, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Except for the guy who has to spend more and then put up extra pieces on his scaffold.
No, it's
That
true.
poor guy.
But when say you got 4 people on there,
well, yeah,
that could be
I'd rather rent the extra couple pieces of guardrail than deal with somebody falling off my scaffold.
Or just the OSHA guy showing up. I mean, failure to provide fall protection on scaffold. in Iowa, serious violation, they don't usually fine the max 13,000, but they could.
They could.
You know the exact amount, don't you? What is it?
Last year it was $13,260.
Yeah, I just round it, but it sounds cooler when you know the exact
This year
amount.
is like 13,000. Is like 400 or 500 something. They tacked a couple hundred onto it.
So for those of you who don't know, OSHA hadn't changed their penalty amounts, I don't know, for about 30 years. And then just in the last couple of years, they're like, oh, consumer price index, inflation, blah, blah, blah. We're going to increase all our penalties every year. So they did this huge jump to make up for all the years they didn't increase it. And now every year on the dot, they're bumping up each one of these fines more and more and more and more.
It's 13,494.
All right. Thanks for checking that out.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're a company in Iowa working in Iowa, in our experience fighting OSHA, the state of Iowa OSHA is much more reasonable on those. I haven't seen them hit max ever yet. However, when I have to assist an employer in South Dakota and Nebraska who are run by the feds, it's almost always max.
Oof.
So little caution to you employers working in South Dakota, Nebraska, you could expect to see a $13,000 fine for any serious violation. All right, so now let's talk about something else when we inspect. Let's just go to PPE. I mean, kind of number one thing, you're out on a job, you're asked to do a safety audit, that job site, say it's a construction site or a manufacturing site. Most manufacturing plants have PPE rules, and pretty much all construction sites, unless it's a little rinky-dink site.
That's for sure.
Most serious, major, big dollar sites, they all have these PPE rules. So let's talk about construction for a second. What is the main PPE gear requirements you see for sites?
I mean, you walk in, you see the cardboard cutout. So it's hard hat, high vis, safety glasses, steel toe boots.
Right. And, gloves is another one I see a lot. I've been on some strict glove sites where they require it unless you're in the bathroom or break room. Gloves got to be on your hands.
I don't know, man. In the bathroom, some of those people I do want.
Yeah, they should have the gloves on too.
Disposable.
Yeah. Those are some, they could charge admission to porta pots for Halloween.
Man, you open that door and it's like, I wish I was wearing gloves right now.
But at the same time, they couldn't let kids go in those. Those are too vulgar and foul.
There's some stuff in there.
So adults, 18 plus, let's just start making money on construction sites. Haunted house, you got to go in each porta pot.
Oh, no.
For 5 minutes. It will charge people for it.
It's more like an episode of like Fear Factor or something.
I still think we'll get sued just because of how vulgar it is.
Right, yeah.
Let me also give you a warning, guys. Construction site porta pots are not politically correct in any shape or form. No. So
no rules and little to no boundaries.
Yeah, so
it's kind of like entering what do you call that? International waters.
Yeah,
you go into a porta john.
It's scary time. And by the way, OSHA, speaking of that, they do have regulations on how many porta pots you need to have on a site, depending on how many people you have. It is a health and safety issue.
And I believe, Aaron, there's also an update now, a clause that requires you to have porta pots for females working on a job site.
That would be nice. So, all right, I got lost on the whole porta pot thing.
We were talking about PPE.
Yeah, there you go. So
look at you, mind in the gutter. We bring up porta pots, and Aaron's like, "I got horror stories for days."
I got a tangent for you. I'm still traumatized.
It's all right. We'll get you some counseling.
But PPE is one of those things that I just see on every site, violated.
Oh, for sure.
When I'm filling out those reports, it's like 7 people without safety glasses.
Right.
2 people without their hard hat on. 2 people grinding without face shields. 2 guys with those steel toe boots on. It's just a common thing. One time I was looking at this guy from far away, and it just didn't look right. Something was off about his PPE. I couldn't pin it. But I get closer to him, and he's got these like big J-Lo glasses on.
Nice.
And like from far away, he looked fine. Like he had safety glasses. Because safety glasses are kind of bigger anyway.
Right.
Some of them. So he looked good from far away. When I got closer, I was like, Dude, are those ANSI Z8 7.1 approved safety glasses? And he put his head down. He's like, no, I lost mine. These are my sister's sunglasses I stole
my
before I came to
gosh.
work. So he's wearing women's sunglasses.
Like these big, shiny.
Yeah, like
Nice.
J-Lo style. And I was like, all right, let's get you a new pair, bud. This ain't going to work. But
Not even an A for effort. He's just getting by.
yeah, and regular sunglasses is something you see a lot outdoor when the sun's shining. They got to be, ANSI rated, under those ANSI standards for safety glasses.
Right.
The hard hat thing, that's followed pretty good.
Man, twice this year, 2020, I had two guys, separate job sites, different companies, wearing a hard hat, but they were newer, so it's all uncomfortable. So I had them all loosened up. There's the same story for both. Bent over, pick something up, hard hat falls off. They step forward a couple steps to chase it down. Both guys stand up, take a copper pipe to make a scoop right out of the top of their forehead.
That's so lame.
Ugh.
So when you're logging that injury, and I think it's, what is it, column F on the 300? I can't remember. But it's the one that most people get violated on when OSHA's looking at the 300s because they don't describe the injury
Right.
and what caused it. But that would be an interesting one. Employee struck head on pipe while chasing hard hat.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that would be a weird one. I would have some leniency if I was OSHA on those just because you issued the hard hat. Hopefully you trained them on the hard hat. They had it in their possession. It just fell off.
Yeah.
I tightened mine up the other day. I had to look down this 30-foot pit into this nastiest thing you've ever seen in a rendering area.
Oh, I thought you were back on Porta Johns.
That's gross too. They're not quite 30 feet. But I was worried about just dropping my hard hat down in there.
No, it's gone forever if it's down there.
Yeah. All right. So going back to these, let's talk about training now. So we talked about op certs, career trainings, ladders, power tools, and all that. Trenching is another one, going back to that, and scaffolding, where if we worked for OSHA, we could make OSHA $1 million easy. Go to every site where they're building scaffolding. Who's a competent person? That person's supposed to have knowledge and training in subpart L, the scaffolding. Those guys building it are supposed to be trained. Let me see those training requirements that authorize you and trained you to build scaffold. And most the folks cannot produce those.
No, nobody's got them.
And same with trenching. You're supposed to have a competent person on site. That competent person, they got to have knowledge on why trenches collapse. They got to have knowledge on employee protection, on the shoring. They got to have knowledge on how to do a soil analysis. You think you're going to find a lot of proof of training there either?
Oh, heck no.
Yeah.
You ask them what soil type they've got, and they're like, oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. Yeah, dirt. That's what type of soil it is.
For sure.
No, I'm looking for A, B, C, or solid rock, pal.
Brown.
C. They just throw out a guess at you. And, people are like, who cares?
Right.
Well, you got the OSHA violation side of it, where, again, could be a $13,000 violation. If the general contractor safety guy is the one who asked, and you're a contractor, well, you could be thrown off site. That's bad. It's bad.
Lose the whole contract.
Yeah. And then you just got the injury aspect. If you don't really know what you're doing all that well, you don't realize you got sea soil and you're not benching, sloping, or shoring it, and you have a collapse and you have a death or something, that's going to change that company's life forever, especially the person who got injured or killed. So
Yeah, and that's the absolute worst case scenario.
all right. So going back to OSHA violations. So when you're on a site and you've gone through and you've done your audits and people have changed and OSHA walks on, do you think they're looking at the same things we're looking at, or do you think they're looking at completely different things?
I think they're looking at probably what they know the most about and feel the most confident in their ability to cite, unless it's like an absolute glaring citation.
Yeah.
If some guy's like walking up a ladder that's been cut in half and duct taped back together, they're like, oh, yeah, that's wrong. But if his wheelhouse is like electrical, man, he's going to be dialed in.
Yeah, that's exactly my experience as well. I had an OSHA compliance officer come to one of my sites who was electrician.
Yep.
And so he's spending all his time looking at power cords and breaker panels, and that's what he cited a lot of stuff on. When I felt as a safety guy, there was much more high-risk issues there, but he was sticking what he knew. I also had a compliance officer who was a former industrial hygienist.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So they're just focused on air quality and all this other stuff. And again, I thought there was much more glaring issues, but they were just kind of sticking to their wheelhouse.
It makes a lot of sense.
All right, well, let's wrap this thing up. So we talked about the podcast and how we're about how not to die at work, covering all things occupational health and safety related. So we're going to get into a lot of different subjects on safety and security. Going to go through OSHA case studies on our show, as well as updates and safety gear, and always have a main topic. But we really appreciate you guys taking the time to join us today. AJ, any last words?
Aaron was traumatized by a porta potty.
All right, that'll do it for this podcast. We're going to drop these once a week and tune in next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.